being with us today. I know that this is going to be a popular one. Talking from my own experience, yeah, I think anxiety is definitely, I wouldn't say necessarily I had it as much as since COVID hit, and then it's just sort of all has been creeping up. And I think everyone I'm speaking to is just like, oh, I do feel a bit, something's making me feel a bit angsty, and it's either, you know, in the body, in the mind, yeah, I think a lot of people are really struggling, aren't they?
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, I'm so pleased that you've come in to join the group today. Would you like to tell us a bit about you? And I've dragged you in and you're not feeling 100%. So yeah, just take it steady. But yeah, just like let us know a bit about you and what you do and maybe a bit about your journey. That would be great.
Super, yeah. So thank you so much, Laura, for inviting me into your group. I really appreciate that. And it's so nice to spend that time with you today and get to know people in your group. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the last year has been really tricky for everybody, and it has made everybody much more anxious than normal. And if you really think about what the role of anxiety is, and when we get anxious, we often get anxious when things are uncertain. And there has never been as much uncertainty in any of our lives as there has been over the last 18 months. So, and it's like a collective uncertainty, and it's not just been like, you know, we might have experienced times of uncertainty when we've maybe moved house or hadn't got a new job or we've changed relationships or things have happened, but it's been quite a finite time, whereas actually this has been 18 months. And whilst we're in a really good position right now, schools are back and people are returning back to their offices, there's still that feeling, what if, you know, what about, you know, we're still finding our way, aren't we? So everything is still very uncertain. So you're absolutely right. I think people are really struggling much more now than ever before. So
yeah. And how about, so Tricia, sort of what was your sort of, so you're an anxiety coach, is that the right label?
I work mainly with anxiety and trauma. I mean, trauma and anxiety are quite interlinked. So a lot of people experience anxiety after they've experienced a difficult event in their life. But I work much more with generalized anxiety, health anxiety, perinatal anxiety. And I work mainly with women through motherhood. So I work mainly with women throughout that experience. I do work with some people out with that category, but it's mainly mums that I work with. And I myself have recovered from crippling anxiety. So I myself had, not realising that was the term for the feeling that I had my whole life. I'd always been probably quite a high achiever, quite a perfectionist, quite a kind of overthinker, overanalyzer, you know, overthought everything, overanalyzed everything, you know, struggled with sleep. You know, I can remember being a teenager and just like lying awake listening to the, you know, we didn't have podcasts.
No.
You know, I didn't have podcasts, you know, like how many years ago, like 20, 30, I don't know, a long time ago. I do a math here. A long time ago, you know, 30-ish years ago, you know, I didn't have like, you know, we didn't have podcasts or meditations or anything. We didn't have phones. And I could remember like listening to different radio programs over the evenings. So I just couldn't sleep. And that was a lot of anxiety. And I just had never, ever realized. But anxiety really impacted me when I became a mum. So became a mum after quite a long journey with infertility, and eventually ended up with a set of twins, which was amazing. And then just when they were about a year old, I fell pregnant naturally, which was like an amazing miracle. Never thinking I'd have any more children. I fell pregnant again. I ended up with 3 children under 22 months. So when you have got anxiety and you're trying to get everything right, and I was trying to get everything right, like real nappies, like breastfeeding, like baby-led weaning, like no TV, like all the things that you sort of put your pressure under, that you put yourself under to try and get everything right. There's only so long that your body can sustain that. And actually I ended up with like what I can only ever describe as like a nervous breakdown, and then got a diagnosis of postnatal depression, which never felt like the right fit for me, because it wasn't really like, it was like my nerves were shot, because I'd been on that adrenaline train for such a long time, and it was like a complete breakdown, and that was definitely as a result from anxiety. So my third son is now 11. So just to put it into context, like how many years ago that is now. I do have a 3-year-old now, which also another surprise and miracle. And so I started working with women when about 7 years ago, 2004. No, 2014. I've lost track of my days. 2014.
Yeah, we've lost a few years anyway. Let's be honest.
Started working, and at first, like, I just wanted to basically like work with mums that worked as like a postnatal doula, and I started going to women's homes, and particularly women who were struggling with their mental health. So I had a really big interest of going in and working with people who were experiencing mental ill health and who needed that kind of support and that kind of like nurturing, kind, compassionate support, the kind of support I wish I'd accessed, or I wish I'd known was there. And then from that, I've then started really specialising in anxiety and trauma.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Wow, what a journey. I love that. You've come so far. That's amazing. And yeah, I just think that sort of having people around you when you have a baby, and you know, it's not always in the baby the first year. I know we talk a lot about PND and things after the first year, but quite often it can be sort of other events then trigger you, and like you say, you've had that anxiety or something going on and your body is feeling depleted, then you add on being sleep deprived, then all the layers of mum guilt and mum judgment, and actually your body just can't, your body and mind just get to a point when there's only so much you can cope with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it just became a really big thing for me. Like, because I remember just so desperately wanting to have these children and then really not enjoying it.
Yeah.
And actually I was just like, this is like just so frustrated. So that's my really big thing, is actually really supporting women to overcome those feelings that we have, you know, those the pressure we put ourselves under to get everything right, for everything to be perfect, the judgment we put ourselves under, you know. Like, my really big thing right now is I see so many mums getting anxious about like the state of their house or clutter, or not, you know, not feeling like they're doing enough, feeling like they're failing, you know, because they've not breastfed their baby, or because they haven't you know, spent enough time with their babies, or whatever it is, whatever pressure it is that they put themselves under, whatever it is that's making them feel anxious, and actually really work with them to overcome that. So actually the time that they spend with their children is actually really good quality time. You can sort of get that time back. And it's really a big part of the work that I do, is really supporting women to become like really well-resourced women, really supporting them to feel good, because when they feel good, they're then able to manage everything so much better. You know, they're able to support themselves so much better, and then when they're supported, then they can support everybody else.
No, that sounds brilliant. Right, we'll come back at the end, and if there's any questions for you, Tricia, and also you can tell us about what's going on with you as well after this. But because I can hear my neighbours banging and drumming or doing whatever they're doing, I'll put myself on mute and shall I give the floor to you for a little bit, and you can is that all right? And then
so today I thought I could come and teach you how to outsmart anxiety quickly and easily. And it's a really big part of the work that I do, is really engaging tools that help you to overcome your feelings as quickly as possible. So in today's session, I'm going to teach you like why trying to think positive or calm thoughts doesn't actually really help anxiety, 3 ways to start getting much smarter with anxiety, and then a practical exercise using those 3 ways. So, but thinking first about what anxiety is. what is anxiety? And it's like a program that runs in our brains to keep us safe, isn't it? It's something that is there, and it's to keep us safe. Over the last year, a lot of us been very anxious because everything's been very uncertain, and that anxiety has actually been it's like a safety mechanism to try and support us and support our survival, support our community survival, make sure that everybody is okay. And it becomes particularly loud when everything's uncertain, when things are new, when things are unfamiliar. And the way that I like to see it is that what anxiety actually is that overestimation of danger. It overestimates how threatening things are. But the biggest thing it also is the underestimation of your ability to actually cope in these situations. So we underestimated our ability to cope over the last 18 months. And that doesn't mean that the last 18 months weren't very good, but how many times did you say to yourself, I can't cope. I'm not going to cope if the school shuts down. I'm not going to cope if the nursery shuts down. I'm not going to cope if I'm going to have to work at home with my partner all the time. I'm not going to cope if X, Y, or Z happens. I can't manage it. I can't do it. Whereas actually what the last 18 months has taught us is actually how resilient and how reliable we are, and how we can actually cope with anything that happens to us. So, and I think that's really important to understand that. So it can impact so many different parts of our lives. So many parts of your lives will be impacted by anxiety. So it can impact your relationships, it can impact your self-esteem, it can impact your health, and it impacts everything, like, your sleeping, it impacts like what you're eating, like what you're doing with your life, like how much coffee you're drinking, how much alcohol you consume. It impacts everything, how much you want to exercise, it impacts everything. And I know so many of my clients experience anxiety each and every day. But others maybe don't experience it all the time, but will experience it much more actively at times. One of the things I think is really important to recognise with anxiety is that you're never going to get rid of anxiety. And that thing that we're going to get rid of anxiety is just a myth. It can't happen. Anxiety has a really important function in our life, but it's about how quickly we utilise the tools that we can to get on top of it. So it's not about saying I'm never going to feel anxious. It's about saying, right, when I feel anxious, this is how I'm going to approach the situation. And that's a really important part of the work that I do in introducing that framework of tools and resources to support people to overcome that. So I think a really helpful way to start understanding anxiety and why trying to get anxiety to calm down is a really unhelpful way forward. So thinking about, inside our heads, like a lot of the time we're having like a lot of internal conversations and sometimes like internal battles. And thinking about anxiety, often that is like this internal conversation of what about this and what about if it happens, and should I do this or should I do that, or all the different things that are happening. So when you tell that part of your brain to stop talking, or to shut up, or to think positively, or to go away, think about how when you've been in an argument with somebody, you're having this discussion with somebody, and somebody tells you to calm down, to start thinking positively, to get a grip. Think about how that makes you feel. And often all that does is that inflames our anger. It makes us even more angry. It makes us even more want to be heard. It makes us get even louder. And anxiety is exactly the same. So it's a part of you that when you try to silence, all that happens is it gets much, much, much louder. So I want you to know, so I want you to understand that, because I think once you start understanding that, then you can then start to get much smarter with anxiety. So rather than trying to think calm, positive thoughts, or reframing, or flipping the switch, or flipping the script, that's really important to understand that. So to start getting smart with anxiety, there's normally 3 different things that I do with people. So the first thing is getting them to start regulating their nervous system. So we'll do that in a minute. We'll make space for the anxious part to really talk to us. So we're actually going to, rather than get the anxious part to silence it or get to think calm thoughts or trying to get angry with it, we're actually going to make space and we're going to actually sit and listen. And then the third thing is we're then going to start identifying like what is the evidence base about you managing these types of situations. So this is like a guided practice that I often do with my clients. So I thought we'd do it today. So just for a moment, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to bring into focus like something that's making you feel anxious. So it can be absolutely anything, just something that's making you feel anxious. And then I'd like you to score how anxious that's making you feel between 0 and 10. So 0 would be that it's making you not feel very anxious. 10 would be very, very anxious. So, and you don't need to share anything like about it. Just make a mental note yourself what that would be. And then just for a moment, just do like some, either like put your hand on your chest, you don't have to do it, maybe put your hand on your stomach, or maybe just focus in on your breath and just gently a helpful thing can be trying to focus on breathing in and out of your actual heart space, or it can just be whatever feels right for you, just breathing in and out through your mouth and your nose, whatever it is, just so gentle breathings, just to start regulating your nervous system. So for other people, that can be humming, or I use another approach called emotional freedom technique, but just for a moment, just spend some time breathing. And in an ideal world, you would wait a couple of minutes. So, but I'm just going to let you just have a few breaths. And then in an ideal world, and somebody's watching back on the replay, they can press pause for as long as they need to until they can feel that their nervous system is calmer. And then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you, if you can, is like visualize like your anxious person as like a part of you. So when I say like my anxious person, like my anxious part of me, it's like a little person, it's like a little girl with like blonde hair and like red welly boots and like a Mac. And she's quite angry. But it can be like, I've heard all sorts of like things like dark clouds. I've heard all sorts of like weird and wonderful things. And a lot of people say, oh, like that feels a bit weird, but we're already having this communication with this part of you. Like you're already having this conversation with this part of you. So just if you can, just make space in whatever way, just visualize it. If that feels okay, if it doesn't feel okay, it's absolutely fine. Just make space for you to have a conversation with that part of you. And ask this part of you, what is it scared of? Like, what is it scared of? What's it scared it's going to happen? And it might be something really obvious, like if you're about to become self-employed, maybe you're worried you're going to have no clients or you're going to have like no money. Or maybe if you're starting a new job, it might be really obvious, like maybe you're worried that you won't know what you're doing, or that people aren't going to like you, or how you're going to get to work, or if your child's starting school, maybe like you're worried they're not going to be happy, but start getting really, really, really specific. And just become like really curious. I'm really curious, like why that's making you feel so fearful. So thinking about the thing about being self-employed, like I'm really curious, like why you're really worried you're not going to have any like clients, or like what does that mean? Like if you didn't have clients, like what would that mean? Because this is the bit that's really important. Like, is it that you're worried you're not going to have any money, or does it mean that you're going to be a failure, or does it mean that you're worried about rejection? So this is the bit that's really important. So it's not just like I'm not going to have clients. it goes deeper than that. So it's like, is it the worry about the rejection? Is it the worry about not having money? Is it the worry about being a failure? Is it something else? So keep going down that path until you get super, super, super clear about it. And then you can then start thinking about, what is the evidence to know that actually you're still going to be okay if this thing happens? So if you're worried about like your child started school and they're not going to be happy, and what that might mean that they won't make any friends, so therefore you won't have any friends at school, something like that, because that's the way that our brains work, isn't it? It's like they sort of go down this sort of chunk. So think about the evidence base that's going to mean that you're still going to be okay, or the evidence base of that you've coped with worse and you've got through it and everything's been okay. So start thinking about some of the evidence. So I sort of like, things for me that are really helpful is like, I know that I overcame like a nervous breakdown. Like I know that I overcame like IVF. They were far bigger things than actually maybe not having clients, being self-employed. Just really thinking about our times that you failed and actually how that's actually been a success in other ways. So just if you can list like 5 or 10 times like that something worse has happened and you've got through it. And then go back to the original like feeling of anxiety and score yourself once again and see where you are now between 0 and 10. And most of the time, most people will have a dramatic difference in that number. So that's like a guided practice, which can be really, really, really helpful. And it's a really good way to like outsmart anxiety by using that evidence base. So I think that's it, Laura.
Yeah, there we go. Need to get myself back off mute. I was doing that as we were going along there. Tricia, I feel like, yeah, I've got quite a list of things that I'm feeling anxious about. But yeah, I guess it's, I'm no expert, but almost taking your mind out of that you can easily sort of cycle through and be caught up in that anxiety. But when you take a step back and go through those stages like you just recommended, even just breathing and then thinking about the evidence, yeah, that's a really clever way to do it, because you're almost putting some distance, I guess, between.
Yeah, you're creating distance, but you're also changing like the focus. Like, so the focus often is like that negative side, like I won't be able to cope, I won't be able to manage. But when you come from the evidence of like, yeah, I can cope, I can manage. So think about the last 18 months, like if that's making you feel anxious about maybe another, I don't think we're going to go into lockdown again, but if we did, like we've got like all this like amazing energy to prove actually how much we've got through it and we're okay. So it's just about continuing to focus like on that whatever happens, I will be okay. Like it's going to be okay. So.
Yeah. And the more you do it, do you almost sort of reprogram yourself a little bit, or is that, or it becomes more of a habit?
I think it becomes more of a habit. So the more you do it, the more ingrained it becomes, and then it's done.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And it's something you can do like out and about, isn't it? Like
I quite often do it when I'm driving. Like maybe I'll wake up in the morning, somebody's making me feel, I'm not really sure exactly what's going on. Get in the car, drive the kids to school, driving back. I'm like, what is that about? What is that I'm worried about? Maybe I'm worried that I've upset somebody, or that somebody's saying something about me, or I don't know, some crazy thought. And I'm like, is that really like important? And actually I've got through all this evidence of actually like, and all this evidence times that I've survived, even if that has happened. So actually it's not important. And it's so quick, like how it just suddenly doesn't become a thing anymore.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I'm going to just do a little look on here and just do a little refresh and see if anyone's got any questions for Tricia at this point. Do let us know. Oh, thank you, Chrissy, for sharing on. Chrissy's been sharing about an example over in the Facebook group.
I'll go back and read
it. The thought of catching COVID, is actually much worse. And that's the thing. Sometimes it can all feel and seem scarier. It can become bigger, I guess, in your head than actually what the reality.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people are really worried about I work a lot with health anxiety, and it's just this like really fear of like this fear that they're gonna like something dreadful is gonna happen to them. But actually, if you look at social media, there's like amazing examples of people who've got cancer, things have happened, and they are like, it's really hard, it's really difficult, it's heartbreaking, but oh my goodness, like it's like something like kind of like gives them like a lease of life often, and it's like the fear of it is actually worse than the actual thing if it actually happened. So
yeah. And the fear and the anxiety, it's not going to stop it happening, is it? That's the thing, that your thoughts aren't going to stop any of this happening. It's just going to make it a harder.
It's just going to impact every part of your life.
Yeah. But this is the sort of stuff that I always go, why weren't we taught all of this in school? They're sort of life fundamentals now, because we're so wired and there's so much going on. We have to learn these skills just for getting through day-to-day life, don't we?
Absolutely, definitely.
Yeah, and then we can pass it on to our children as well, which is, from oh, thank you, Angel. I'm just looking on here to see what the we've got. I know we've got quite a few joining us live, Tricia, over on here, and then people are going to be catching up. Let's have a little look. Lisa, we all do it. We all over worry. Yeah, we do. And then afterwards, quite often I find myself going, what was I? But I just wasted time there when I didn't need
or
to.
like Googling at 3 a.m. for things, like Googling symptoms of illness or something else at 3 a.m. is like absolutely massive.
And you end up spiraling, don't you? It's really, people are saying, it's a really simple but effective technique. Brilliant. Jane as well. You can often sort of feel anxious about something and then actually it ends up being something else. You can I think it's fair to say that we're all fit. We've all been feeling it, Tricia. It's not, that's the thing. No, we're not, you're not alone if you've been feeling like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm conscious of your time, but can you let us know, you've got a masterclass next week. Is that something, is that something that anyone could come along to? Or
absolutely. So it's running next Monday night, and the masterclass is called like How Not to Be Anxious, and I'll be teaching my 8-step framework to support people to really overcome anxieties. It doesn't constrain them anyway, and they can live the life that they want as they want to live, so they can be much more present, have more energy, feel much calmer, just handle life a lot more in tune with how they want to be. So that's on Monday night. It's free, 8 o'clock Monday night, and I can post the details.
Put the link on where I'm sure there'll be people signing up. And in terms of other ways that people could work with you if they wanted to do a bit more and sort of delve in a bit more into their either anxiety or trauma, or how can they do
so
that?
if they just get in touch and I can chat with them. So I work with people on a one-to-one basis, and I work with people on a group basis as well. So I've got a group program starting a couple of weeks' time. Which is the group program still baffles me in terms of how effective it is, in terms people who joined the one in February are still messaging me now to say that they cannot believe what the difference has been in their life. So and one-to-one support as well, both for anxiety and trauma.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tricia.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, and hopefully Tricia will be able to pop into the group and pick up on any of your questions, and then people can get in touch directly with you. That's been great. I'm gonna say goodbye to everyone on Facebook now, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you for being with us. Okay, bye.
Bye.